Somewhere right now, a company is spending more money in a single afternoon than most nations spend on their entire technology budget for a year. And almost nobody outside of a small circle of executives knows exactly where that money is going. Data centers the size of small cities are rising out of empty fields in Texas, in the Middle East, and in rural corners of the United States that most people have never heard of. Behind closed doors, governments are negotiating over who gets access to the most powerful computer chips ever built, and the decisions being made this year will quietly decide who controls the next decade of the global economy. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why this race is happening, who is winning, who is losing, and why it might already be too late for some companies to catch up. Before we go further, if you want to stay ahead of these shifts before they hit the mainstream news, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because this channel breaks down the biggest technology stories in the world before everyone else is even talking about them. This is not just another tech story about a new phone or a flashy gadget launch. This is a story about power, in every sense of that word, and about which companies and countries will control the infrastructure that the rest of the world will depend on for decades. Let's get into it. The story starts with a simple but staggering fact. Artificial intelligence models have become so large and so hungry for computing power that the companies building them are now spending hundreds of billions of dollars just to keep up. These are not ordinary business expenses like office rent or marketing budgets. This is money being poured into physical infrastructure, including chip factories, undersea data cables, power plants, and data centers packed with tens of thousands of specialized processors. The scale of this spending has become so large that it is now reshaping entire national economies. Take Oracle as one striking example of how this shift is playing out inside major corporations. The company cut around 21,000 jobs over the past year, which amounts to nearly 13% of its entire workforce, bringing its full-time headcount down to around 141,000 people. In its own regulatory filings, Oracle openly linked these cuts to its adoption of artificial intelligence across its operations. At the very same time, the company increased its capital spending by more than 160%, funneling billions of dollars into AI infrastructure instead of into the human workforce it was replacing. This pattern is not unique to Oracle, and that is exactly what makes it so alarming. Meta, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon have all been trimming their workforces while simultaneously ramping up spending on data centers and AI systems at a pace the world has never seen before. Executives across these companies have quietly acknowledged that this transition comes with real costs, including productivity dips and skill shortages as teams adjust to AI-driven workflows. In other words, the very companies promising that AI will make everything more efficient are still figuring out how to manage the disruption it is causing internally. Now let's talk about the chips themselves, because this is where the real battle is happening. Modern AI models are trained using massive clusters of specialized processors that need to talk to each other at extremely high speeds without creating bottlenecks. As these training systems have grown from hundreds of connected chips to tens of thousands of them, the components that move data between those chips have become just as important as the processors doing the actual computing. Companies making these connective components, like optical transceivers, have seen explosive growth as a direct result of this demand. One particularly interesting wrinkle in this story is how deeply intertwined the American and Chinese tech industries remain, even as political tensions between the two countries continue to rise. Some Chinese component suppliers are reportedly getting more than 60% of their quarterly revenue from American AI infrastructure companies, despite ongoing restrictions on advanced chip exports to China. This creates a strange and fragile situation where the two countries are simultaneously trying to compete with each other and depend on each other. It is a contradiction that could snap at any moment if political relations deteriorate further. Speaking of political relations, the United States and China are now preparing to hold their first formal government-to-government talks specifically focused on artificial intelligence. These discussions are expected to happen in the coming months and will mark a new diplomatic channel built around the security and economic risks tied to the most advanced AI models. Nobody expects a sweeping agreement to come out of these early talks, but even establishing shared definitions for frontier models, proliferation risks, and release standards would represent a significant shift in how the two superpowers approach this technology. Meanwhile, the demand for AI computing power has become so intense that even the companies building these advanced models are struggling to keep pace with their own users. A Chinese AI startup called Moonshot AI recently had to temporarily stop accepting new subscribers for its Kimi K3 model because user demand had pushed its available computing capacity to its limit. Existing users could still access the service, but the pause revealed just how strained the infrastructure behind these systems has become. This kind of capacity crunch is especially difficult for Chinese AI developers since their access to the most advanced processors remains limited by ongoing export restrictions from the United States. This global scramble for computing power is not just a story about corporations and governments. It is starting to hit ordinary consumers directly in their wallets. The massive demand for memory chips used in AI data centers has driven up prices for the same components used in everyday smartphones and personal computers. Budget smartphone manufacturers are now being forced to cut features and specifications just to keep their devices affordable, while premium flagship phones continue to advance with better hardware. This is quietly widening the gap between cheap and expensive devices in a way most shoppers have not even noticed yet. At the same time, the financial numbers behind this AI boom are almost impossible to fully comprehend. Startups around the world raised a record-breaking amount of money in the first half of this year alone, with figures reported in the hundreds of billions of dollars. A huge share of that capital went directly into artificial intelligence companies, with a handful of major players absorbing an outsized portion of the total funding. This concentration of capital into just a few companies is raising serious questions about whether the AI industry is becoming dangerously top-heavy, with too much power resting in too few hands. Governments are beginning to respond to this concentration of power in ways that go beyond simple regulation. There have even been reports of the United States government considering taking direct financial stakes in leading AI companies, essentially becoming a stakeholder in the technology's future rather than just a regulator watching from the sidelines. This would represent an extraordinary shift in how governments typically interact with private technology companies. If it happens, it would blur the line between public oversight and private enterprise in a way that has rarely been seen in modern economic history. The infrastructure side of this story extends far beyond just chips and data centers into things like undersea internet cables and energy production. Major tech companies have been investing in new undersea cables specifically designed to support the massive data transfer needs of AI systems operating across continents. At the same time, the electricity demands of AI data centers have become so significant that some companies have reported double-digit percentage jumps in their annual power usage. This is forcing tech companies to strike new partnerships with energy providers and, in some cases, even invest directly in new power generation projects just to keep their AI systems running. Samsung offers another fascinating piece of this puzzle, as the company has been making major strategic moves to strengthen its position in the AI chip supply chain. The company has been relocating parts of its operations to expand its presence in growing technology hubs like Texas, positioning itself closer to the heart of American AI infrastructure development. Samsung has denied that this represents any kind of broad restructuring of its global consumer business, framing it instead as a targeted move to improve collaboration between teams. Regardless of how it is framed, the move signals just how seriously major chip makers are taking their position in this race. Security concerns are also becoming a bigger part of this conversation, as AI tools become more deeply embedded into everyday digital life. Researchers have begun warning that AI-powered web browsers could open up entirely new avenues for hackers to exploit, since these tools are given unprecedented access to a user's online activity and personal information. As more companies rush to build AI directly into the tools people use every single day, the attack surface for cybercriminals grows larger and more complex. This is creating a tension between the industry's desire to move fast and the very real need to build these systems securely. Regulators are also starting to scrutinize how AI companies market their products to the public, treating exaggerated claims as a consumer protection issue rather than just a technical detail. There have been growing calls for stronger oversight of how companies describe the accuracy and reliability of their AI systems. This shift signals that AI marketing claims are moving out of the realm of harmless hype and into the realm of legal accountability. For startups in this space, the message is becoming increasingly clear that overpromising what their technology can do now carries real regulatory risk. Even some of the world's leading AI researchers are calling for entirely new institutions to manage this rapidly evolving landscape. Prominent figures within major AI labs have publicly called for the creation of new standards bodies specifically designed to oversee frontier AI development. This reflects a growing recognition within the industry itself that existing testing and oversight structures may not be equipped to handle the pace and scale of what is being built. Whether such a body gets created and who would actually have the authority to enforce its standards remains one of the biggest open questions hanging over the entire industry. So what does all of this actually mean for someone watching this video right now? Someone who does not run a tech company or sit in a government office. It means the price of your next phone or laptop may already be shaped by decisions happening inside AI data centers you will never see. It means the job market in your industry, whatever that industry may be, is increasingly likely to be touched by the same automation forces that just cost tens of thousands of people their jobs at companies like Oracle. And it means the balance of global power between nations like the United States and China is being redrawn right now, chip by chip, cable by cable, and data center by data center. The uncomfortable truth is that this race shows absolutely no signs of slowing down anytime soon. Every week seems to bring another multi-billion-dollar investment announcement, another corporate restructuring tied to AI adoption, or another diplomatic maneuver between major world powers. The companies and countries that manage to secure the chips, the energy, and the data needed to power these systems will likely hold enormous influence over the next chapter of the global economy. Those that fall behind in this race may find themselves permanently locked out of the most important technological shift of our generation. What makes this moment particularly striking is how quickly the narrative has shifted from simple excitement about chatbots to a much deeper and more serious conversation about physical infrastructure and geopolitical control. Just a couple of years ago, most people's understanding of artificial intelligence began and ended with typing questions into a chat window. Today, the same technology is reshaping international diplomacy, corporate employment strategies, consumer electronics pricing, and even national energy policy all at once. It is a reminder that the biggest technological revolutions rarely stay contained within the boundaries where they started. As we wrap up this deep, the job market, and the global balance of power for years to come. Understanding this story now puts you ahead of the curve, rather than reacting to it after the fact. If this video helped you understand what is really happening behind the headlines about AI, chips, and global tech power, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next deep dive into these fast-moving stories. Drop a comment below and let me know which part of this story surprised you the most, whether it was the job cuts, the chip shortages, or the sheer scale of money being poured into this race. Share this video with anyone you know who still thinks AI is just about chatbots, because the real story is so much bigger than that. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I will see you in the next one.